The grand halls of the Valen Empire shimmered with crystal light. Tall windows of blue stone reached toward the sky, and banners of silver cloth floated in the air as if alive. On this day, the court of King Morvac had gathered, their sharp eyes fixed on the throne. The king's voice thundered across the chamber, announcing a decision that would shock both his people and the humans. To seal a fragile peace with humanity, the king would send his youngest daughter, Princess Ela, as a living gift. It was not uncommon for empires to exchange treasures, symbols, or even family members to strengthen treaties. Yet whispers spread among the Valen nobles. Why Ela? Why the princess whom many in the empire called broken? Ela sat quietly at the foot of the throne, her hands folded in her lap. She was young, graceful, and carried the beauty of her kind smooth silver skin, dark eyes that seemed to hold distant stars, and long hair that shimmered faintly under the light. But for all her elegance, she was known for one truth: she could not continue the bloodline. She had been declared infertile since her first years of adulthood, a shadow over her royal status. To her father, that made her less valuable in the court, and thus, expendable. The nobles whispered among themselves. She is useless here, one voice said. Perhaps the humans will value her more than we do, another replied. The words pricked at Ela's heart, but she did not let her face show pain. She had grown used to such talk. When the human delegation arrived, the chamber filled with silence. The humans were different, shorter, less radiant, and dressed in simple uniforms of dark cloth. They did not shimmer like the Valens, nor did they carry themselves with the same sharp elegance. Yet there was something about them that unsettled the court, a calm determination, as if their strength came not from appearance but from something deeper. Leading them was Captain Ryan, a man whose presence was quiet but firm. His gaze was steady, his steps measured. When the king declared the gift of Princess Ela, the humans exchanged uncertain looks. Ryan's brow furrowed, though he did not speak against it. He knew this was not a gift to accept lightly. As Ela rose, her long gown flowing behind her, she felt the eyes of the entire court pierce her. To them, she was being sent away like an object, something to be handed off to secure an alliance. Yet when her eyes met Ryan's, she saw no mockery, no pity. Instead, she saw a strange respect, a recognition of her as a person, not a burden. The ceremony ended with little celebration. The king spoke of peace and duty, but his tone was heavy with pride, not joy. For him, giving away Ela cost nothing. For Ela, it was the end of one life and the beginning of another. As she walked beside the humans toward their ship, her heart pounded. She had never been beyond the walls of her father's empire. Now she would live among strangers, far from the stars she knew. Fear tightened her chest, yet curiosity flickered within her. What would life among humans be like? Would they treat her as her people did, with whispers and pity, or would they see something more? The human ship was nothing like the glittering halls of Valen palaces. It was made of steel and light, its walls plain, its air filled with the hum of engines. To Ela, it felt raw, alive, and strangely honest. The humans did not hide behind beauty or ceremony. Their strength was in function, in purpose. Ryan guided her through the corridors. You will have your own quarters, he said simply. His voice was calm, neither harsh nor overly kind, but steady. Ela studied him carefully. There was no arrogance in his words, no sense that she was property. He spoke as though she were a guest, not a possession. That night, Ela sat by the small window in her new quarters, staring out into the stars. The galaxy looked different from here, framed by the steel of a human vessel rather than the crystal towers of her home. For the first time, she wondered if being cast away might not be a curse. Perhaps here, far from the weight of her father's court, she could find something new, something that was hers alone. But deep within, questions burned. Why had her father chosen her, and only her, to be sent away? Was it truly to strengthen peace, or was it to rid himself of the daughter who had failed him? As the ship drifted into the dark sea of stars, Ila felt both fear and hope rise within her. She was no longer just the infertile princess. She was something else now, something her people had not yet named. And though she did not know it, this journey would not only change her life but would also shake two civilizations to their core. Sparkle's word count, 810. The first days aboard the human ship were unlike anything Ila had ever known. The corridors were narrow, filled with the steady hum of engines. The air smelled faintly of metal and fuel, not of polished crystal or rare perfumes like in her father's palace. Yet, despite the plain surroundings, there was a kind of warmth here, a life that came not from beauty but from the people themselves. Humans moved about with purpose. Some wore simple uniforms, others carried tools, and all of them seemed busy. Yet, whenever their eyes fell upon Ila, they did not sneer or whisper as her own people had. They looked at her with curiosity, sometimes even with admiration, as if she were not a burden but a guest. Captain Ryan checked on her often. He was not a man of many words, but when he spoke, his tone carried calm strength. "Are you comfortable?" he asked one morning, standing outside her quarters. His dark uniform was neat, though not decorated like the robes of Valen nobles. He looked nothing like the proud officers of her father's court, yet Ila sensed an authority in him that was different, earned, not inherited. "I am adjusting," Ila replied softly. Her voice echoed slightly in the plain room. Ryan nodded. "It will take time. Our ways are not the same as yours. But you will find that humans value more than appearances." His words lingered in her mind. In the following days, Ila began to wander the ship, accompanied by a young crew member named Mara, who had been assigned to assist her. Mara spoke quickly, her tone cheerful, and she explained everything with pride. She showed Ila the control deck, where humans guided the ship through endless stars. She pointed out the mess hall, where laughter rose easily among the crew, even after long hours of work. Ila watched closely. On Vela, nobles never ate with servants, never laughed among soldiers. Here, humans shared meals together, no matter their rank. Even Captain Ryan sat with the crew sometimes, listening more than speaking. It amazed Ila. One evening, Mara invited Ila to join a simple dinner. The food was plain compared to the delicacies of her empire: soft bread, cooked grains, and meat from preserved stores. Yet when Ila tasted it, she was surprised. It was not rich or rare, but it was warm and filling. More than the taste, it was the way humans shared it, passing dishes, smiling, talking freely. For the first time, Ila felt part of something, not apart from it. Still, doubt whispered in her heart. Could she truly belong here? Or was she only here because her father had chosen to discard her? That night, Ila stood by the window of her quarters, gazing at the stars. She thought of the whispers back home, the endless pity in her people's eyes. And then she thought of the humans' steady gazes, the way they looked at her without judgment. For the first time, she felt seen, not as a failure, but as a person. The days turned into weeks. Slowly, Ila's quiet nature began to soften. She asked questions about the ship, curious about the machines that carried them through space. She learned that humans valued knowledge as much as strength, and even though she struggled with their words at times, the crew was patient. One afternoon, she found herself speaking with Ryan in the observation deck, where the stars stretched endlessly across the glass. "Why did you accept me?" she asked suddenly. "My father gave me as a gift, but you could have refused." Ryan was silent for a long moment. His eyes stayed on the stars before he answered. "Because you are not an object. A gift can be refused. But a life is not something to throw away." Ila's heart stirred. No one had spoken of her like that before. Their conversations grew more frequent after that. Ryan told her of Earth, of oceans that covered most of the planet, of mountains older than any kingdom, of skies that burned with colors at dawn. He spoke not as a soldier, but as someone who loved his home deeply. And when Ela listened, she began to wonder, was Earth a place where someone like her could finally belong? But beyond the calm of the ship, storm clouds were gathering. Far across the stars, word had already spread to the Valen Empire. Nobles whispered that the infertile princess now lived freely among humans. Some laughed, others frowned, but all of them agreed the king would not let this matter rest for long. Ela did not yet know it, but every step she took closer to the humans was another step away from her father's world. And though her bond with them was growing, so too was the anger building in the empire she had left behind. As the ship drifted deeper into human territory, Ela looked again at the stars, her reflection faint against the glass. For the first time in her life, she felt a fragile hope. Perhaps here, among these simple yet strong people, she could discover who she truly was. But hope was always fragile in the shadow of kings. Weeks turned into months aboard the human vessel, and the strange life that once felt overwhelming slowly became familiar to Princess Ela. She no longer kept to her quarters. She walked the corridors freely, spoke with the crew, and even joined in small tasks when allowed. Though she had come as a gift, the humans never treated her as such. Bit by bit, she was no longer an outsider, she was one of them. Captain Ryan remained a quiet presence in her life, steady as the stars themselves. He never spoke of her as a duty or responsibility. Instead, he listened when she shared her thoughts, offered explanations when she asked questions, and treated her with a kind of respect she had never known in her father's palace. To Ela, that respect was worth more than all the jewels of Vala. But then, something changed. It began with fatigue. Ela noticed she tired easily, even during short walks. She dismissed it at first, thinking it was only her body adjusting to the different rhythms of the human ship. Yet the tiredness grew heavier. Then came the mornings when her stomach twisted uncomfortably, leaving her pale and weak. Mara, ever cheerful and watchful, was the first to notice. "You don't look well," she said one morning, placing a hand on Ela's shoulder. "You should see the medic." At first, Ela refused. On Vala, weakness had always been a shameful thing, something to be hidden. But Mara insisted, and eventually, Ela allowed herself to be examined. The human medic, a calm woman with gentle eyes, ran tests carefully. She asked questions, checked readings, and studied results with growing surprise. Finally, she looked at Ela with disbelief. "Princess," she said softly, "you are carrying life." The words struck Ela like thunder. For a moment, she could not breathe. She thought she had misheard. "Carrying life," she whispered. "Yes," the medic confirmed. "You are with child." Ela's hands trembled. Her mind raced back to every whisper, every cruel word spoken in her father's court. Infertile. Broken. Worthless. For so long, that had been her truth. Yet now, here among humans, the impossible had happened. Life stirred within her. The news spread quickly through the ship. Some of the crew were astonished, others quietly joyful, and a few even laughed in disbelief. But none mocked her. Instead, they looked at her with awe, as though she carried not only a child but also a miracle. Ryan came to her quarters that evening. His face, usually so calm, carried a storm of thoughts. "Is it true?" he asked. Ela's eyes filled with tears, though she did not cry. She only nodded. For a long time, Ryan said nothing. He simply stood there, breathing slowly, as though weighing the weight of this truth. Finally, he spoke. "Then this ship now carries more than a treaty. It carries the future of two worlds." The words shook her. She had not thought of it that way. To her, it was still too overwhelming, too unreal. Yet Ryan had spoken a truth she could not deny. Beyond the human ship, across the stars, the news spread faster than light. In the Valen Empire, the whispers of nobles grew louder. The infertile princess, they scoffed. Impossible. But as the reports confirmed it, laughter turned to anger. King Morvac was furious. To him, this was no miracle. It was an insult. His daughter, whom he had given away as a token, had achieved what his proud empire had declared impossible, yet not with one of his kind, but with a human. To him, it was humiliation carved into the stars. Messengers filled the royal court, voices trembling as they reported the truth. The king's face turned cold and sharp. "They have stolen what was ours," he growled. "They mock the blood of Vala." Some of his council tried to calm him. Others whispered that perhaps it was fate, that perhaps this was a sign of change. But the king would not listen. To him, it was betrayal. His pride burned hotter than reason. Back aboard the human ship, Ela sat in silence, one hand resting gently on her stomach. She felt fear pressing against her heart. What would her father do? Would he send for her? Would he declare war? Yet mixed with the fear was something else, something stronger. For the first time in her life, she did not feel broken. She felt whole. She felt strong. Ryan stood by her side, watching the stars outside the window. "Whatever comes," he said quietly, "we will face it. You are not alone, Ela. Not anymore." She turned to him, her eyes shining softly. His words were steady, and in them, she found a courage she had never known. But even as hope flickered between them, they both knew the truth: the king's wrath would not stay silent for long. And when it came, it would shake not only the human ship but the balance of the entire galaxy. The impossible had happened. And because of it, everything was about to change. News of Princess Ela's pregnancy reached the Valen Empire like a storm. Word traveled faster than any messenger could carry it. From the glittering towers of the royal palace to the distant corners of the empire, whispers turned to shouts, disbelief to anger. The nobles gathered in the Grand Council chamber, their faces sharp with worry and outrage. King Morvac sat on his throne, his silver robes flowing like liquid light around him. His hands gripped the armrests tightly, knuckles white. His eyes, usually calm and commanding, burned with a fury that frightened even his closest advisors. "They have dared," he began, his voice booming across the chamber. "They have taken what belongs to us and dared to make it their own." A hush fell over the room. Even the bravest council members felt the weight of his anger. One noble spoke carefully, "Father, perhaps it is not as it seems. The child is still the blood of Vala, is it not?" The king's eyes snapped to him, full of fire. "Do not speak nonsense," he roared. "This child carries human blood. My daughter, my princess turned into a pawn of these primitives." Other nobles tried to reason with him, warning that an aggressive response could lead to war with humans, a species with whom they had recently begun fragile peace talks. But Morvac would not hear it. Pride, rage, and humiliation clouded his judgment. "Prepare the fleets," he commanded, his voice final. "We will bring my daughter home. If the humans refuse, they will learn the consequences of defying Vala." Far across the stars, aboard the human vessel, Ela felt a chill creep through her spine. She had known the news would eventually reach her father, but she had not imagined the wrath it would bring. She stood by the observation window, hands lightly resting on her stomach, staring into the darkness of space. Ryan approached, his calm presence a steady anchor. "The king has learned," he said simply. Ela nodded slowly, swallowing the fear rising in her throat. "I expected as much," she admitted. "He will not understand. He sees only honor and bloodline, never heart." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we must be ready. If he comes, it will not be with words. but we will face him together. Even as Ryan spoke, preparations aboard the ship began. Humans reinforced shields, reviewed defenses, and checked their navigation systems. The crew moved with quiet determination, aware of the power they faced. Though humans lacked the speed and advanced weapons of Vela's fleets, they had ingenuity, courage, and the will to protect life, the same qualities that had drawn Ila to them. Meanwhile, on Vela, King Morvac did not wait. He summoned the greatest captains of his fleet, commanding them with precision and fury. Plans for a swift return of his daughter were laid, but he did not plan only for diplomacy. He would make a statement. To him, the humans had challenged his empire, humiliated his bloodline, and risked the honor of Vela. In the quiet of the human ship, Ila could feel the tension tightening like a rope around her chest. Yet amidst fear, there was also determination. She had lived most of her life in obedience, weighed down by duty and expectation. Now, she had choices. She could stand silent, a passive pawn in her father's anger. Or she could speak, act, and defend the life growing within her, the life that had already changed the galaxy. Ryan sensed her thoughts. "Whatever happens," he said softly, "we will not let fear control us. Your child will not be a weapon. You will not be forced into someone else's war." Ila drew in a deep breath, her hands tightening slightly over her stomach. The bond she had formed with Ryan and the humans gave her strength she had never known in Vela's court. Fear still lurked, but courage now bloomed alongside it. Back in the Imperial Palace, King Morvac's fleet launched. Ships of silver and blue streaked across the void, faster than anything the humans had seen before. Every captain knew the command of the king was absolute, and every pilot carried both pride and dread. Their orders were clear: bring the princess home. Obey or face destruction. But even as the fleet raced through space, the king could not see the truth. He could not see that his daughter was no longer the fragile, infertile princess he had scorned. She was growing in courage, hope, and connection, human and Valan alike. The child she carried was not a weapon or a scandal, it was a new beginning. And yet, for now, all that mattered to Morvac was anger, pride, and the desire to control what he thought was his alone. As the stars stretched endlessly between the two fleets, both human and Valan crews prepared. The future balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong move, one misstep, and the galaxy could ignite in war. But deep within her, Ila felt a quiet certainty. No matter what came, she would not allow fear to rule her. She would face her father's wrath, the power of his empire, and the uncertainties of the stars. And she would do it not as a gift or a pawn, but as herself, Princess Ila, protector of the life she carried, and bridge between two worlds. The calm before the storm had passed. Now, the galaxy waited for the inevitable confrontation. The human ship hummed steadily through the vast darkness of space, but the air inside was tense. Every crew member felt it, the weight of the approaching Valan fleet, shimmering silver and blue like a living storm against the stars. They had faced challenges before, but never one like this, the wrath of a proud empire, fueled by anger, pride, and fear of losing control. Princess Ila stood on the observation deck, her hands resting lightly on her stomach. She could feel the life within her stir, a quiet reminder that even in the midst of uncertainty, something beautiful and unbreakable existed. Beside her, Captain Ryan watched the stars, his jaw tight, his mind calculating. "They're coming fast," he said softly. "Too fast for negotiation alone." Ila turned to him. Her voice was calm, though firm. "Then we must be ready. But we will not give them reason to harm the child or anyone aboard this ship. We must show them that we are not their enemies, even if they see us as such." Ryan nodded. He admired her resolve. "Your courage gives them something they cannot destroy. That is our advantage." The humans gathered in the main deck. Their leaders spoke with measured voices, discussing strategy and defense, but also most importantly ethics. Unlike the Valans, humans did not rely solely on force. They relied on reason, on ingenuity, and on the belief that life, no matter its origin, was sacred. One of the senior officers addressed the group. The king's fleet is powerful, yes. But they will not risk harming Princess Ela or the child unless provoked. Our task is to defend without causing unnecessary violence. We stand not as warriors, but as protectors. Ela watched quietly, absorbing every word. She realized that humanity's strength was not in their weapons, but in their principles. Every member of the crew understood what was at stake: a life, a promise, and the fragile bridge between two civilizations. When the Valen fleet appeared on the sensors, glittering like a wave of light, tension spiked. The humans braced themselves, hearts pounding, but no one panicked. They were determined, disciplined, and united. King Morvac's voice came through the comm system, cold and commanding. Princess Ela, return to Vala at once. You will not defy your father and your empire. Obey, or face the consequences. Ela stepped forward, her voice clear and unwavering. Father, she said, her words echoing through the communication system, I am no longer a child to be commanded. I am a person. The life I carry is not a weapon or a betrayal. It is a new beginning. I will not return against my will. The king's fury was audible even across the void. You dare speak to me in this way, he bellowed. You are my daughter. You will obey. Ela's gaze did not falter. I am still your daughter. But I am also someone who has found life, love, and purpose beyond your court. That cannot be undone. And I will protect that life, whatever it takes. There was silence aboard the human ship, a tense pause as the words sank in. Then, slowly, the humans began to prepare their defensive positions. Shields glowed faintly, weapons powered, engines ready. Every crew member knew the stakes. They would not start a war, but they would not stand by and let the Valens force them to surrender a life. Ryan stood beside Ela. You are brave, he said softly. And the life within you gives us all strength. We will not fail you or the child. Ela smiled faintly, feeling a warmth she had never known in the halls of Vala. Fear was still there, but it was tempered by courage, by hope, and by the knowledge that she was not alone. On the Valan side, King Morvac ordered his captains to encircle the human ship. His fleet moved like a tide of light, fast, powerful, precise. Yet even as his ships advanced, some of his own nobles whispered doubts. Perhaps his anger had blinded him. Perhaps his daughter's words carried more truth than he wanted to admit. But the king ignored them. Pride and honor were stronger than reason, and he would not back down. As the two forces drew closer, Ela felt a strange calm. She placed a hand over her stomach, feeling the child within stir as though aware of the tension outside. No matter what comes, she whispered, we will protect life. Ryan looked at her with respect and quiet awe. Then we stand together, he said. Not as soldiers, not as enemies, but as guardians. And that is more powerful than any fleet. For the first time, the humans and the Valens faced each other across the void with not only weapons but the truth of their convictions. One side carried anger, pride, and empire. The other carried courage, hope, and life itself. The stars around them sparkled cold and distant, but within the hearts of those aboard the human ship, fire burned. They would not give in. They would not surrender. Humanity's stand had begun and it would not be easily broken. The day had finally come. After months of waiting, Princess Nara was ready to welcome her child into the world. The palace was filled with a strange mix of hope and tension. Some of the royal family and court members watched quietly, while others whispered among themselves. Everyone knew this birth would change everything. Nara sat calmly in the grand birthing chamber. The room was softly lit with glowing panels that gave a warm light. The air smelled faintly of herbs and clean air. Liam, the human scientist who had helped Nara with the treatment, stood nearby, holding a small device that monitored the baby's health. He smiled gently at Nara, trying to ease her nervousness. "You're doing very well, Princess," Liam said softly. "Zion is strong. You both will be fine." Nara nodded, feeling a mix of pain and excitement. Her heart was full of love and hope for this child, a child born from two worlds. She thought about the future, about what this child could mean for her people and for the humans who had helped her. After several hours, a soft cry filled the room. Everyone stopped what they were doing. The baby had arrived. Liam quickly checked the monitors and smiled. "It's a healthy boy," he said. "Stronger than we expected." Nara looked down and saw the small face of her son. His eyes were wide and curious, with a strange brightness that seemed almost magical. She felt tears in her eyes, tears of joy and relief. This child was more than just a baby, he was a symbol of hope. Word spread quickly through the palace. Soon, messengers were running to tell King Varan the news. The king, who had been angry and doubtful, sat alone in his private chambers, trying to understand what this birth meant for his family and empire. When the king finally met his grandson, he could not hide his surprise. The baby was calm and peaceful in Nara's arms. His skin had a faint glow, and his eyes seemed to see more than anyone else could. "This child, he is different," King Varan said quietly. "Yes, grandfather," Nara replied with a smile. "He is a new beginning. Zion is strong because he carries both our worlds in him." Despite the king's words, deep inside, he struggled with old fears and traditions. But as he looked at Zion, something in him began to change. Days passed, and the child grew quickly. Zion was not an ordinary baby. He learned fast, understanding sounds and gestures long before most infants. He smiled at people and seemed to comfort those around him. Many court members began to visit Nara and Zion, hoping to see the future of the empire. Liam continued to study the child, amazed by his unique abilities. "Zion's brain works differently," he explained to Nara one day. "He can connect ideas and feelings in ways we never thought possible. This could be the start of a new era for both humans and Zilithians." But not everyone was happy. Some traditionalists whispered about Zion behind closed doors. They worried that mixing human and Zilithian blood would weaken their race. They feared change and the unknown. One afternoon, Nara took Zion to the palace gardens. The sunlight made his eyes sparkle as he reached out to touch the flowers. Nara smiled softly. "You are special, my son," she whispered. "You will bring people together." Suddenly, Zion looked up and reached for a small bird nearby. The bird flew closer, landing gently on his hand. Everyone who saw this was amazed. It was as if Zion had a special connection with nature and life itself. News of this miracle spread beyond the palace walls. People from different parts of the empire began to speak of hope and unity. Children from both human and Zilithian worlds sent gifts and drawings to the palace. Zion became a symbol that no one could ignore. Even King Varan could not deny the change in his heart. He watched his grandson closely, seeing how much love and joy the child brought to his family. Slowly, the king's anger faded, replaced by curiosity and pride. One evening, as the sun set over the palace, King Varan sat beside Nara and Zion. He reached out his hand to gently touch the baby's cheek. "You are our future, little one," he said softly. "Perhaps it is time to open our hearts and minds to what is possible." Nara smiled, feeling hope rise inside her. "Together, we can build a better world," she said. And in that moment, with Zion sleeping peacefully between them, it seemed the walls of old fear and doubt began to fall. The story of the young princess and her extraordinary child was just beginning. But already, the empire was changing, becoming stronger, kinder, and more united than ever before. The palace was quiet as the sun rose over the distant mountains. King Varan sat in his chamber, staring out the window at the bright sky. The past weeks had been filled with many changes he had not expected, and some he did not know how to accept. His grandson, Zion, was growing fast, and with each day, the boy's presence brought both hope and challenge to the empire. King Varan's thoughts were heavy. He remembered the first time he had heard about Nara's pregnancy. At first, he had been angry and fearful. A child with human blood was a threat to their traditions and the purity of the royal family. He had even thought of stopping the birth. But now, as he watched Zion, he saw something new, something that could not be ignored. The king rose and walked slowly to the nursery where Nara and Zion were resting. Nara looked up and smiled warmly when she saw him. The baby lay peacefully in his cradle, his small chest rising and falling with each breath. "Your Majesty," Nara said softly. "Thank you for coming." King Varan nodded, his eyes fixed on Zion. "He is unlike any child I have seen before," he said. "So calm, so wise in his own way." Nara smiled. "Zion is special because he carries both our worlds. He is the future we have dreamed of." The king sighed deeply. "I must admit, I feared change. I feared losing what we have always known. But I see now that change is not something to fear." Nara reached out and took her father's hand. "We cannot stay the same, father. The world is moving forward, and we must move with it. Zion will show us how to grow stronger together." Just then, Liam entered the room, carrying a small device filled with glowing lights. "Your Majesty," he said respectfully, "I have new information about Zion's development. His abilities are growing faster than we expected. He has the potential to bring great knowledge and peace to both our peoples." King Varan looked at Liam thoughtfully. "This child is truly a gift, then?" Liam nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty. Zion is a bridge between two worlds. If we work together, humans and Zilithians can learn from one another and build a better future." The king closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about the old stories of division and mistrust. He thought about the people who still whispered doubts and fears. But most of all, he thought about his daughter and his grandson, about love and hope. "Very well," King Varan said quietly. "I will support Zion and Nara. The empire will open its doors to new ideas and new friends." Nara's eyes shone with tears of joy. "Thank you, Father. You are giving us a chance to heal and grow." Word of the king's decision spread quickly. The royal court held a gathering in the great hall. People from many worlds, including humans and Zilithians, came together. The air was filled with excitement and anticipation. King Varan stood before the crowd, his voice strong and clear. "Today, we begin a new chapter for our empire. We will embrace unity and diversity. Zion represents the hope of many generations. Let us walk forward together, as one." The crowd erupted in cheers. Children from different worlds laughed and played, their voices mixing in joyful harmony. Nara held Zion close, proud and happy to see her father's heart open. Days turned into weeks, and the empire blossomed. Humans and Zilithians worked side by side, sharing knowledge, culture, and friendship. New schools taught both languages, and scientists collaborated on projects to improve life for all. Zion grew stronger every day. His kindness and intelligence touched everyone he met. People often said he had a special light inside him, a light that could heal old wounds and inspire new dreams. One evening, as the sun set behind the palace, King Varan walked through the gardens with Nara and Zion. The flowers bloomed brightly, and the air was warm with the promise of spring. The king looked down at his grandson, who held a small flower in his hand. "You have changed more than just our family, Zion," he said softly. "You have changed our world." Zion smiled, his eyes shining. "I want to help everyone live in peace and happiness." King Varan nodded, feeling hope fill his heart. "And we will, together." As the stars appeared in the night sky, the family stood united. The old fears and anger had passed like a distant storm. What remained was love, hope, and the promise of a brighter future. The empire was no longer divided by fear or tradition. It was united by the courage to change and the strength to believe in something better. And so, the story of the young princess, her extraordinary child, and the king who chose hope over fear came to inspire generations. Together, they built a world where different worlds were not enemies but friends, and where every child, no matter where they came from, could shine.